for this challenge, we're looking at Carl's cycling data. And so it's a nice rich data set, but there are a few things that we want to clean up about it and a little bit of reshaping that we want to do. So first of all, if we look at this measure column, then we can see that we've got some of the values have been recorded as minutes, so the number of minutes he was cycling for, and some of them have been recorded as kilometers, so how many kilometers he cycled for. And if we want these all to be distances rather than a mixture of distance and time, then we're going to need to use our distance, speed, time relationships that you may remember from maths in high school. So let's look at that equation that we need to write. So we need to change our values. So if it's the measure is equal to min, so I'm going to zoom in on that so it helps you see that a little bit clearer. There we go. So if the measure is equal to min, then we need to divide the value by 60. Why do we need to divide it by 60? Well, it's in minutes at the moment, and Carl has given us his speed in hours, so 30 kilometers per hour. And therefore we need to convert, first of all, our minutes into hours. So we divide that value by 60, and then we need to times it by our speed, which Carl told us was 30 kilometers per hour. And that's how we get our distance. So if you remember the kind of triangle that you look at for distance, speed, time, distance is at the top, speed and time are on the bottom. So we just multiply speed and time together to calculate our distance. And then if our measure is kilometre, then instead we just want to leave it alone and keep it as the value. Okay, so that's how we do that calculation. Next, we want to make sure that we change all of these kilometres into, whenever it's kilometres, that means that Carl was outdoors when he was cycling. Otherwise, if it's recorded in minutes, it means he was on the turbo trainer. Okay, so two options for what we could do here. I could literally just double click and change this kilometre option to be outdoors, and similarly change the min to be turbo trainer, but instead I wrote a calculation. So just saying if the measure equals kilometre, then outdoors, else turbo trainer. So we'd get to the same end result, but just a couple of different options there. Next, Carl asks us to have a column for the outdoors and a column for turbo trainer. So that indicates to us that we need to do a pivot. So what I do now is I'm just doing a rows to columns pivot. So changing that option there from the default of column to rows columns, having the measure as our headers, having the value as our values which go into our new columns. And now we have a column for turbo trainer and a column for outdoors. Brilliant. Next, we're asked to make a row for every single day of the year between the 1st of January and the 1st of November. So we can see that our data begins 1st of January here, and it goes down to the 1st of November. So we just want to fill in the gaps basically. So if I use the new rows step, if you're using Tableau Prep 2021.3, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the values from on field, I'm going to choose the date, and I'm going to leave that as the min and max there. I have specified that it is a day. I'm updating the existing field rather than creating a new one. And our values in the other rows should be null or 0. So where it's a numeric field, it's going to give me a 0. So he's done 0 kilometers outdoors or on the turbo trainer on that day. And where it's a string field, it's going to have a null there. I think that for this example, that makes the most sense. So next we're wanting to indicate, so flag when an activity has been done, so either on the turbo trainer or outdoors. Now I've only just realized as I've come to record this, I could have just added in a field before I added in all those new rows just to have a 1 there, or even come before the pivot actually. I would add it in at this clean step here, and if I just added a field literally with the calculator field with the value 1 in it, then that would save me having to write any calculations now. But alas, that's not what I did. So let's see what I did instead. So always multiple ways to solve these problems. So first of all, I grouped together the null values and the 0 values. So if you see here where we've got that null and the 0, I simply clicked to highlight both of those values, holding down Control, there we go, and clicked on group values so that I got just zeros, because obviously our null values are where from the pivot step, our zeros are from the new rows, so we just want to make it consistent how that's displayed. And then the calculation that I wrote, I used I never remember what the correct phrasing is for if, inline if perhaps, to write a statement that says if my turbo trainer is not equal to 0 or my outdoors is not equal to 0, i.e. there is some activity in one of the fields, then give me a 1, otherwise give me a 0. So the logic would also be the same as if I wrote it the other way around. So if I said if turbo trainer equals 0 and outdoors equals 0, then 0 else 1. So couple of different ways that you could write that logic too. Okay, so now I can just aggregate my data. So grouping by the date, you see that we get the 305 rows that Carl was mentioning is the desired output. And then we sum up our number of activities, our turbo trainer and our outdoors. And that gets us to the final data set that Carl was looking for. So thanks very much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the challenge.